What's your role in the South African government?
I'm the leader of the Christian opposition political party.
When you say Christian opposition party, I mean, are you part of the parliament?
Yes, I'm part of the parliament. I've been a member of parliament for 19 years, but I have now taken leave of absence for 4 months. And I've stepped down because I had to face a question of conscience. And the question was, can you continue drawing a salary from parliament when you are not in parliament? And obviously my conscience would not allow me to do that. So I resigned temporarily, and everybody knows, the Speaker of Parliament knows, I resigned temporarily. Why? Because I could not agree with people who would not be in Parliament and yet continue drawing a salary.
What's your concern about the allegations of apartheid against Israel? Does it weaken the definition of genuine apartheid?
It definitely, that allegation definitely weakens the definition of apartheid. There is definitely nothing happening in Israel that can be compared to apartheid. I've been to Israel more than 10 times, and I've been in the public transportation. I've seen what happens in the healthcare, in their hospitals, in their schools. There is a mixture that you do not find in South Africa. So people who are saying Israel is an apartheid state are misleading, and they're deliberately lying to the ignorant.
What would be apartheid that you had in South Africa that doesn't exist in Israel?
During apartheid, if I may give a few examples,
Please.
I could not live in an area of my choice. There was a law called Group Areas Act. Black people had areas where they could live in, and white people also had areas they could live in, and Indians also had areas where they could live in, exclusively. We were not allowed to mix. And secondly, the school system also was very different. Our education system was not as good as what the white people were getting, because we were told that our system, the education system we got, was meant to make a black person to be forever dependent on a white man. And the schools, obviously, the buildings were also very different. They had facilities that black people did not have. You talk about healthcare, we did not have the access that black people, white people had of the best access, best health that was available. Now, one of the sad things was that when a black person like myself was sick during those days, a white doctor would have the option of either agreeing to treat me or not. And if he agreed to treat me as a black person, he could not treat me in the same room or surgery where he was treating white people. There had to be a back door.
In a different medical office?
Correct. There would have to be a front door and a back door. And in many stores also, black people would have to buy whatever you wanted through a window, okay? Stand in the window when white people would go through the front door. So the system was diabolical. It was very, very bad. So all these things that were happening in Israel, in South Africa, are not happening in Israel. So people who are saying Israel is an apartheid state are really talking nonsense.
But would it have to be equal to the kind of apartheid that you had in South Africa in order for Israel's treatment of the Arabs or Muslims to be objectionable?
Well, I mean, it depends what you mean by treatment. If you talk about how Israel treats the Muslims or the Arabs, I would want to ask you, what do you really mean by that? Because if you talk about how they are firm in dealing with those that are suspected of being involved with illegal activities, then I would say every country in the world treats anybody who's suspected of an illegal activity differently from law-abiding citizens.
Right. But do the Arab citizens of Israel, do they live with the same rights and privileges of Jewish citizens?
From what I have seen, not only what I've read, but from what I have seen, you have Arab teachers teaching Jewish children, something that in South Africa would never happen. A black teacher would never teach white children. You have Palestinian nurses and doctors who are treating Jewish patients, something that was not happening in South Africa. You have Jewish patients and Arab patients sharing the same ward. It's something that was not happening in South Africa. So all these allegations are definitely foundationless.
But somehow within South Africa, this anti-Israelism has caught hold for people who you would think ought to know better. Why do you suppose that happened?
It is not everybody that is bold enough to stand against the majority opinion. It is not everybody who would say, I don't want to be loved at the expense of the truth. A dear friend of ours once made a statement which is very profound. He said, these days we need more people that are willing to be an island of integrity in the sea of compromise. So people easily compromise their values and their beliefs for the sake of acceptance. But some of us believe that truth is the most important thing that people should be exposed to. You know, being a Christian myself, Christ once made a statement which is universally applicable when he said, you shall know the truth and the truth will set you free. So we believe in truth, and we are saying, even if I have to be the only person who believes in truth, who will speak the truth, I'm prepared to be the only person to speak the truth and to believe in truth.
Well, what's the size of the opposition against Israel and the size of the defenders?
Because the majority of South Africans have a Christian background, the majority of South Africans that have not been politicized, that have not been subjected to propaganda, they support Israel. The majority of South Africans. The few who do not support are those who have been exposed to propaganda and those who have been deceived. And those who want to be part of a new thing, a new movement in solidarity with those who say, during apartheid, we stood with you. Now it's your turn to stand with us. But the majority of South Africans definitely agree that Israel has the right to live within safe and secure borders.
How about the media, the South African media? Is it influenced, do you think, by the government or by the leftist bias of the journalists?
I think there's definitely a leftist bias by journalists. They are not giving a balanced views when it comes to the issue of the Middle East, in particular Israel. Many times Israel does many positive things that you don't hear about. But when a child would be killed or an Israeli soldier would make a mistake that is made by soldiers in all other countries, including in my own country of South Africa. Our soldiers have blundered. American soldiers have blundered. We see that in the news. But when it is an Israeli soldier blundering, everybody has to know about it. It is headline news. But when they've done something positive, nobody says anything about it, which I think is unfair.
Do you suppose that the roots of that come from Christian replacement theology? Notions that the Jews claim moral superiority and that they've fallen, and so it's almost like a tribal rivalry?
Well, there is an influence in some areas of replacement theology, but it is not strong in South Africa. Most people do not believe in replacement theology. Most Christians in South Africa still believe that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is not only the God of the Jews, but is also the God of the Christians.
Sure it is.
They understand that Christianity has no roots without Judaism. And so if we say these people no more exist, they are no more in God's plan, we are saying we are now without roots. And obviously people are wise enough to know and to understand that we still have roots, and our roots are in Judaism.
Does Israel have technologies and in the areas of agriculture and solar energy that could benefit Africa, which are being kept for political reasons from the African economies and peoples from benefiting from?
One of the things we are hoping to do is to inform our people, particularly those who are suffering, those who are poor, those who are without resources, including those who do not have access to pure drinking water. Say to them, Israel has the best technology in the world. They are a world leader when it comes to water purification. Now, because of the politics of some individuals who don't care about the health of our people, they do not consider the fact that Israeli technology should be used within South Africa and the African continent in order to help the people who need it the most. It is the people who are not in need who are saying we don't need Israel here, but those that are in need would not care where the help comes from. And so, knowing what Israel has done, knowing the successes of Israel, we are saying, South Africans, wake up, know the facts, know the truth. This is what Israel has been able to achieve, and if we apply and if we allow them to invest in our country, many of you that don't have access to good, pure drinking water will now have access to that. And also, talk about solar energy. Our electricity in South Africa, people are complaining, is becoming too expensive. And Israel has the technologies that can help people who don't have access to electricity to have it cheaply.
So is the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement keeping those benefits from the people?
They are hiding them. They are keeping them away from the people. Many people don't know about this. That is why we are saying we want to speak out so that the people will know what is available. So that when people are saying boycott Israel, they will say you have the privileges that we don't have. We also want to have access to clean drinking water. We also want to have cheap electricity, and it's Israel that can help us. So you that are saying away with them, you don't care for us. We want to stand for ourselves. We want to speak for ourselves because we realize the BDS campaigners don't care for us.
And are you just saying that because you're a religious man hoping to win points in heaven by standing with, or is this based purely on its merits?
No, this definitely is based on its merits. We are talking, I'm factual in what I'm saying. You come to South Africa, you ask people without clean drinking water, some of them who are sharing rivers with animals. Say, do you want pure water? Everybody would say yes. And if you say to them, here is a country that has the technology, nobody would want to continue drinking water that is coming from a river polluted by animals. Everybody wants clean drinking water. So we are saying, for the sake of the health of our people, let Israel technology be embraced, be accepted in our country for the sake of the health and lives of our people.
Continue this because we're running.